Yeah, okay. Afternoon, everybody. I'm Lizzie from Think to Speak. B, unfortunately, isn't here today because actually they're not very well, so they're under the covers. But I just wanted to share with you a few things and talk to you a little bit about the organisation, some of the work that we do. So, Think to Speak came about because of my family's life experiences. And so back in 2005, I became a mum, I became a widow, and I was diagnosed with HIV, all within an 18-month period. So as you can imagine, each of those three events is kind of life-changing, becoming a mum, losing your partner. I didn't lose him, he wasn't lost in the supermarket, he was gone, and being diagnosed with HIV. So those three things really did turn life upside down and meant for my little one at the time, not so little anymore, we had to cope with quite a lot, and we had to handle some conversations that were really quite challenging, quite difficult, and we recognised that some of the professionals involved in our lives maybe wanted to avoid conversations instead, actually walk away from them instead of confronting them and kind of talking about things. So back in, 2015, started to look at what support could go into my child's school. And it was never more than that idea that someone could go into the school and do a bit of help. And it's grown quite a bit bigger than that. So we're now coming up 4 years old. We have a team of 17. We have some amazing contracts. We have some amazing grants. And we do different kind of projects with families, with individuals, and then with big organisations. So we work with the NHS, we work with the YMCA, the EBP, lots of different great organisations doing really good things to support what they're doing. All around the conversations are often professionals or adults, families in the home may want to walk away from. They may rather think, I'd rather not deal with that, somebody else can. And in a nutshell, that's where we come from. One of the things that we identified back in the end of 2017 was that there was a real lack of support in Lincolnshire and actually across the East Midlands for trans individuals. So particularly for trans children, there were groups for LGBT groups for sort of 13 plus, for sort of a bit older, for teens to come to share their experiences and talk. There was a complete gap when you were looking at these younger individuals. And so two families approached us saying, is there something that we can do about this? Can we start a support group? So we all know that the value of peer support is huge and is very well evidenced, and we know it really works. So we run a whole series of different support groups. So the trans group, which is called Hodgepodge, in that you put all these things together and see what comes out. There's no clear definition. We don't believe in the stereotypes of gender, and actually exploring gender stereotypes is a really important part of exploring gender as a construct. So we started the group January 2018, not really knowing if we'd have two families and we'd be sat there on our own, or if there'd be 3 or 4, we weren't quite sure. But we started it in one of the children's centres in Lincoln. And that first group, we had 12 families. So we had parents, siblings, and all of these people coming together. And for most of the families, they had never met another trans child or another family with a trans child in their family at all. They'd met people online, maybe they'd reached out and communicated with people, but they hadn't actually been able to sit and have a cup of coffee and talk to somebody that had kind of experienced the same thing they had. So we knew then, actually, this is really powerful, and it's so simple, but actually it really, really works. So the group has grown and grown. We're now based over in Gainsborough. We used to be in Lincoln, but we now have our head offices in Gainsborough. And that's like a test bed. So we have a nice space where we are able to trial things, test things, and see how they work. Because then lots of that, the ideas and the stuff that comes from that, is rolled out in schools. So we have contracts with the Department for Education over in Doncaster. And that's the stuff that we've learned, that we've trialled and tested within our own spaces, that then we can go out and deliver elsewhere. And that works really very well. And the transport group is one of those things where then other groups are starting to then say, actually, can you help us? We need an area over here. We all know how rural Lincolnshire is. And so actually then there's other groups turning to us and saying, actually, can you help us? Can you support us with this? What could this look like? And so actually then connecting families. So from Hull, we have somebody come, Grimsby, right the way down the county, and across. Because actually the power of meeting a family that's walked through the same journey that you have is so incredibly empowering. So there are 3 main things that I wanted to get across very quickly, because I'm conscious of time, when we're talking about gender and being trans, and actually what being trans can mean to a young person, or actually to anybody. It doesn't really, the age is not so important. The first thing being that pronouns really matter. So you may notice on my collection of badges on my lanyard, I have my pronouns, which are she or her, which are my preference. We have got a whole load of badges if you want to come over and grab one. And that simple gesture of actually acknowledging the pronouns that you choose to use can start a conversation around pronouns, which actually a lot of people, if you've never questioned your gender, will never have considered the assumptions that you make, either when choosing your own pronouns or assuming somebody else's when you're talking to them. If at all you're not sure, then ask. It's as simple as that, and just check in with somebody what pronouns we should use. And refer to default neutral pronouns. If we use they and them, and actually in customer services, in education, in lots of different interactions where you're meeting general public, for example, if we rely on they and them pronouns and being completely gender neutral, you won't offend anybody. You will only offend somebody if you get the pronouns wrong, and that's usually by assuming or by not asking. It's a very simple thing. Stick to they and them pronouns. That works very well in therapy rooms, and when we're not assuming anything until we've kind of decided and agreed that with the person we're sat with. The second one being this value of safe spaces. And again, that seems such a simple thing, but actually a safe space is just that, for someone to truly be. And when you are questioning your gender identity, or what your gender means to you, and this may be the same with sexual orientation, but I'm talking specifically about gender today, actually it's really important that you have a safe place to be. And that's what we find with the kids. So lots of the kids that come to the group, they can't be themselves in school because they're not there yet. Their families aren't maybe ready to take that step. But by coming to somewhere where they can dress how they want to dress, be called whatever they want to be called, is actually such a simple thing, but by providing that safe space is massive. So how can you as individuals do that? Whether that is somewhere within the school, whether that's your sofa at your house, that when someone comes around that they feel safe to explore and to be actually who they want to be and be authentic in themselves. Because actually that's such a simple thing, but it's hugely massive, particularly to a young person who may not have that elsewhere. And the third thing being, which I hope everybody in this room will be anyway, is about respect and actually being respectful of someone. Because if somebody has shared some information with you, and this may, regardless of what that piece of information may be, they've shared that with you, and we need to be respectful and mindful that they have chosen you to talk to about that. So when we're looking at gender, it's respecting what they've said, that they have shared with you, and that they feel you're an ally. And how can you then step forward and be even more of an ally? How can you perhaps offer that person the safe space or the comfort, or what can you put in place to ensure that for example, your processes and your policies include and that sort of safeness, and that you're on their side permeates through your organisation or through your home, whatever it may be. So 3 very simple things: remembering to ask about pronouns and not assume them. How can you make a safe space? Visual cues are a great way. So again, that taps in with pronouns, posters, a safe space that actually shows that you're being an ally. And being an ally is so important, whether that's visually standing up or actually being the open ears and listening to somebody that wants to share something with you. And what you do with that information, you must explore with that person you're talking to, as you all would do anyway. So they are my 3 very simple things, I would hope, when you're initially starting to have a consideration of a chat around gender and being trans. There is so much more that I could go on, but I'm very conscious of the time. I am around, so if you do want to come over, my stuff is over here in the corner. If you want to come over and say hi, grab some information, or ask me anything, then please do. But any questions? Do you want this one or that?
Thank you so much. I'm going to wrestle people out of the way for those. Sorry. Any questions? Oh, no. That's okay.
And get your steps up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Who was it? Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Hi there.
Hello.
I know you were at the LGBT
Yes.
conference this year. I don't know if you were there last year when I think it was William Farr, LGBTQ plus everything,
Yes.
did a speech, but this is more of a statement than a question. But I did like one of the girls' comments, about having a little bit of queer in here, and it's talking about how, having the rainbow flag or something in your office so that people know that it's safe to come and talk.
Yeah. So the NHS have their little badges now, if you've seen the rainbow badges with the NHS flag on. That took huge amounts of implementation, but actually it's a really simple visual cue that you're an ally. What I would say with that is not slapping it across everything for the sake of then being inclusive, because actually then that doesn't really mean anything if you then turn to a member staff who doesn't have the training or the confidence to back that up. So it's for me, that's a personal decision to kind of step forward in that, but actually there are ways of making organisations lead that journey. Yeah.
Hello, I speak as a mother, and my daughter's very intellectually curious about a lot of things, and basically she's quite interested in LGBT issues, but she told me off for this pronoun distinction, not getting the distinction in pronoun right, so basically I'm already a bit daunted. Is there a legal change of pronoun that I should be aware of if, I'm discussing this, if I was a teacher, say, or... and is that information there? Because I'm really intellectually curious.
Yeah. So on a legal sense, you can change your name by deed poll, and in that you can reference your pronouns. There isn't actually a legal document that supports your choice of pronoun, but it's very much a personal decision. And so we see this in secondary schools, for example, where a young person may be non-binary and may be exploring their identity. And so that might mean that one term they want to choose this pronoun, and actually then next term they may change that. And so for me, it's sense checking that conversation and exploring that with them to see at that moment in time, where are they at? And that's just respect of how anybody would want to be treated. But from a legal point of view, you can't legally specify your pronouns, but you can change your name through deed poll.
I think that's clear.
Oh, perfect.
Hey,
Hello.
I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago with some teachers, education providers, and they were saying that when they've discussed issues around gender identity, questioning gender within schools, other parents have not responded well to that. And they've asked me to look at some guidance around how to work through that with other parents. So do you have any suggestions around that?
I can email you a whole heap of stuff. Yeah, if you come and grab a card afterwards. There's lots of great guidance out there. We have our own, but there's also lots of other stuff that we can share with you. And it is very much learning from other people and other settings that have done this really, really well and how that's worked. Parents sometimes can be the biggest stumbling block. But actually, that's in the same way a lot of you in the school in the room will be very used to having to bring parents on board when we're changing, RSE plans, sex education plans, and things like that. And actually, it's just exploring and educating, because often it's built on ignorance, and ignorance breeds fear. If we can dispel a bit of that and actually put things in place, because often parents kick back to safeguarding, and actually, in a school, if you've got a trans young person or somebody who maybe in the future may be trans, perception is that actually they are more at risk and more at harm than the general community. So it's a bit of education on both parts and helping the school get to the place where they're confident in sharing that. Yeah.
So anyone can go to the support group?
Yes, so our support group is for 13 and unders, their family and their siblings. So we have siblings, they can be any age of siblings, and the family group, it's up to the family to decide who in their family they want to invite along. We don't specify that. For older children, so 13 plus, there is a group at the showroom in Lincoln with the YMCA. So we run that in collaboration with them. So if anybody wants details of that, please do come and ask me. All right?
Thank you. We can have one more question, Lauren says. Would anyone like to be that one question? I can't see any hands, Lauren.
Thank you very much.